Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss how to deploy an existing ASP.NET Core Web API to AWS Lambda. So for this we have here AWS site. In this site they have given all the steps, but uh, few steps are missing. When I add those few steps, then only I was able to deploy. So I just want to show you how to deploy an existing ASP.NET Core Web API to AWS Lambda. In the previous video, I have shown how to deploy the newly created web application to AWS Lambda. You can just go through that video. I will also provide in the description so that if you want, you can check that video. Now let us see how we can deploy this existing .NET Core Web API. So for this, I have already created a .NET Core Web API. This is a simple web API that was created using .NET Core 3.1. And if I run it, it is just when I browse this weather forecast controller, it is returning this data. So this data I was able to view in proper JSON format because of that extension I have added to my Chrome. Otherwise, we could see only in this raw format. So as I have added the extension, if you see, that extension is JSON formatter. Because of the JSON formatter, I was able to see the JSON in a proper format. So now we are going to deploy this into AWS Lambda. So let us go step by step. The first step, they are saying that the first step is to add AWS Lambda, amazon.lambda.aspnet core server. So this Nuget package they are asking to install. So let us go and install this Nuget package. Excuse me. So let me open to the go to the Solution Explorer, right click, manage Nuget packages. Here we in the browse you can search for that package. So this is amazon.lambda.aspnet core server, makes it easy to run ASP.NET Core Web API applications to AWS Lambda functions. So they have provided this Nuget package. So here it is the description. So you can just go ahead and install it. Click I accept. It is going to install. Once you install this package, the next step is they're asking to, after adding the package, add a new class named Lambda function and have it extended from amazon.lambda.aspnet core server.api gateway proxy function. So you have to implement the abstract method init to bootstrap the ASP.NET Core framework. So we need to add this function, add this class, and this class should be inherited from this class. So let us add a class. Go to the Solution Explorer, right click, add class, and just give the name as Lambda function. Click on add. And this class, they are saying that it should be inherited from this class. So we just need to inherit this class from that class. And we need to override this init method. So you can just directly copy paste it, or you can type here as protected override and init. You can see this init. What is the parameter iWeb host builder? So you need to check that init. This is iWeb host builder. This is iHost builder. So this we need to check iWeb host builder, and they're saying to put this method here. I'm getting error when I use the same code as this. So what I did is use startup instead of like this. We need to put as this in this way startup class. We need to provide the startup class as type here, and after that instead of use API gateway directory, it is a we need to add the namespace system.io namespace. Let us click on it and click on this so that it will add that namespace. And when we use use API gateway, we are getting the error. So when I use Lambda server, so I observed this error. So in this way we can fix this error. So after adding this class, the next step is enable. So this also I was not able to figure out. Enable tool uh, support in AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio. They are saying that you need to add the in order for the AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio to recognize the project as Lambda project, you have to add the Nuget package. But I couldn't add this Nuget package, so that's why what I did is as a workaround. So we need to add this amazon.lambda.tools in our CS project file. So if you go to the Solution Explorer, you can find here the CS project file. Just double click on it, and in the item group you just need to add it. So what happens is when we add, we will get the commands. We will get the feature to deploy it in AWS Lambda that I will show. So for now, if you see, right click, you don't find the option publish to Lambda. So if you see here, publish to AWS and publish to AWS Elastic Beanstalk, but you don't find the option publish to AWS Lambda. So when you add this line here and save it, and if you go to the Solution Explorer, now if you right click and you can see this option publish to AWS Lambda. So it will add some features, required features in the tool to add or publish to AWS Lambda. So we need to add this statement in this .cs proj file. After that, so once we add that file, we need to just right click and we need to add a serverless.template file. So just go to the project, go to the Solution Explorer, right click, add. Here you can see that AWS serverless template. Just add that file. Here we have the options. This is a serverless model. This is like a cloud formation template. So here in this, we need to change this. In this handler, we need to provide an assembly name. Assembly name, if you see the weather forecast controller, not, not, not weather forecast controller, Lambda function. So this is the startup function for the Lambda initializer. So to bootstrap that Lambda. So we need to add this namespace existing .NET Core API. So let us go to that file, and here assembly name, just provide the assembly name and full name. Full name means assembly name plus class name. So we just need to provide this assembly name dot class name. Class name is the Lambda function. Once we add that, method name. Method name we need to provide as you see here. The method name they're saying to provide this function handler async. We need to add this as a method name. This function handler async method is inherited from the base class of our Lambda function class. So just we need to add this function handler async as the method name. After adding these things, so here we need to change it. Runtime.NET Core 2.1. Actually, this .NET Core 2.1 is not supported currently, so we need to change it to 3.1. This is the important step that you need to remember, because .NET Core 2.1 is not supported currently in AWS Lambda. So please just change it to .NET Core 3.1. And after that, here that step is not mentioned. After that, they are saying publish to AWS Lambda. But before that, we need to add one more file, that is uh, this one, AWS Lambda tools defaults. So we need to add this JSON file. So let us go to the Solution Explorer, right click, add new item, just search for JSON here. So select JSON file and provide the name as AWS Lambda tools defaults.json. Click on add. Here we need to provide the settings that are required to deploy this Lambda function, deploy this API to AWS Lambda. Those are the settings. Let me copy and paste the settings. These are the settings that we require. So paste it over here. So if you see this file provides default values for deployment wizard inside Visual Studio and AWS Lambda commands added to the .NET Core CLI. So to learn more about Lambda commands with the .NET Core CLI, execute the following command at the command line in the project root directory. So here we need to provide all the details like region, in which region we want to deploy this, the configuration and the framework. S3 prefix means this is nothing but in the a bucket will be created, and under the bucket if you provide a prefix, under that prefix the folder will be created. So let us just give the name as core functions, core API, and serverless.template. S3 bucket name we need to give as any name. Let us give the name as Lambda bucket, and the stack name core API stack. So we need to provide all these details. This bucket should exist uh, in our AWS environment. Otherwise, it will create with this name Lambda bucket. So now we have completed all the required settings. Now we need to deploy this to AWS Lambda. Before we deploy, we need a user. So let me log into the AWS console. This is my AWS console. So let me browse the IAM user. So IAM service, identity and access management. This is the service in which we create users. So let us create a user with programmatic access, and we will use that user. So let us click on users. Let me click on add user. Let me give the username as programmatic user. So we are going to provide the access key, programmatic access only. We don't want this user. We don't want to log in with this username. So we just need access key. So enables access key and secret key for AWS API, CLI SDK, and other development tools. So we don't want this user to access to AWS console. So I'm just checking this check button. So click on next permissions. And for now, I'm going to give the full access, but we should give proper access like to deploy the AWS Lambda full access, and the other services like creating API gateway access. But for now, I'm giving the administrator access. Click on tags, click on review, and let me create the user. So after creating the user, we need to just download this file, this CSV file. Through this file, programmatic user. So we are using this programmatic user credentials to connect to the Lambda, to connect to the AWS environment from Visual Studio. Now let me go to the Visual Studio and open the AWS Explorer. So if you don't see the AWS Explorer, you can see it from view in this AWS Explorer. From here you can see it. So go to AWS Explorer and click on this one and give the profile name as default. And the access key ID and access secret key, let us import from the CSV file that we have downloaded. So programmatic user we have created. So let us import that and click on OK. So now we have connected to our AWS environment. So let us go to the Solution Explorer. Before deploying, let us see we don't have anything in the. First, let us check the S3 bucket. The S3 bucket we don't have. In the S3 service, we don't have any buckets. And if you go here, Lambda, we don't have Lambda functions. So let us go to our Visual Studio and publish it to AWS Lambda. So just right click, publish to AWS Lambda. So it will show us the stack name and bucket name from the file AWS Lambda tools default.json file. S3 bucket name it is not showing because we need to have that bucket before. So let us create that bucket before. So S3 bucket name Lambda bucket we have given. So let us go to the S3 service. So let us create the bucket. Create bucket. This is the bucket name we want to give. We will leave all the default settings and just create bucket. So the bucket name all okay. It should not contain capital letters. So Lambda bucket. A bucket name already exists. So Lambda bucket 123 will give. 123 also already exists. So the bucket name XYZ. XYZ also exists. So underscore will give with today's date, August 31st. Bucket name must contain uppercases. Okay, underscore it is not taking accepting. So AUJ underscore it is not accepting. So let us delete that. So okay, this name it has accepted. So let me copy this name and give it this name here. Let me save this. So create bucket. Now the bucket has been created. So let us go to Visual Studio and now we will publish to AWS Lambda. Right click, publish to AWS Lambda. The profile it is saying default and the not with Virginia. All these settings it has taken from this file AWS Lambda defaults.json. So now you can see now we have got that bucket name and the stack name core API stack. So let's click on publish. Error publishing to AWS serverless application. The S3 bucket must be in same region as in okay. The bucket we have created in different regions. So let us go to the so let us just delete this bucket. We need to create the bucket in the same region. So it is saying global. It is a global service, but we have an option to choose the region here, AWS region. So we need to choose North Virginia, I think. Yeah, here. Let us create the bucket in the same region. Right. Now let me create the bucket. Create bucket. Conflicting conditional operation is currently progress exists. Please try again. So let us try again with the same some other name. Example Lambda core bucket. Let us give the name like this and we'll see and we will choose the region as North Virginia US East 1. Click on create bucket. Now the bucket has been created successfully. So let us copy this bucket name and give it in our configurations file. Let's close this, save it, go to the solution explorer, right click, publish AWS Lambda. Now let us see whether it will succeed or not. So click on publish. Now I think it is succeeding. So it may take a bit of time. So let me pause this video once this has completed, and I will again start the video. See, create in progress. So let me pause this video for a while until it completes, it succeeds. Now, if you observe, it has create complete. Now it has completed and it has given the AWS service serverless URL. If you copy this URL and paste it in the browser, and our controller is weather forecast controller, right? Let me copy the controller name and we will check whether we have successfully deployed or not. We don't need to give this controller name, right? So let me browse it. It is browsing. So now it has deployed successfully and we are able to see that. And if you go to here, uh, we can see that cloud formation stack. If you go to cloud formation, we can see that stack, not cloud formation, I'm sorry. If you go to S3, see here in the bucket. So this is the prefix. So that is why core API under this. So this is the template and this is the code. It has zipped that code and has created the zip file, and with this zip file a lambda function got created. So if you go here, lambda, sorry, we are under Mumbai region. The function is got created in North Virginia region. So let me change it to North Virginia. So you can see here lambda function under the API gateway. Here this is the API gateway. This is the endpoint. If you observe, this is the endpoint we have seen in the Visual Studio after the completion of it successfully. So this is the endpoint. So in this way, we can deploy the existing core API to AWS Lambda. And 1 second after doing all these things, we can just delete it. So once we click on delete, so deleting a stack will lead to deallocation of all stack resources. Yes. So once we delete it, it will delete that uh, Lambda function, API gateway, everything. So delete in progress. So friends, in this way, we can deploy an existing .NET Core Core Web API to AWS Lambda. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.